Information stored in the CMOS, complementary metal oxide semiconductor. Floppy disk and hard disk drive types, you can turn them on or off or enable or disable that bus on the board. CPU type and speed, so this is where you would set the clocking and overclocking. Random access memory, the RAM, you can tell it how much RAM you have. There was a time when we had to set the specific RAM, like we had to go in and type what it was going to be. Now it just auto detects it. The new ones are pretty easy. Really, you don't have to mess with them very much, if at all, unless you're going to get into overclocking. You set a date and time. Most of them will grab this off the internet and then update the BIOS date and time or just disregard it altogether. It used to be that's where the time was set. Serial and parallel port information. So you may set up all kinds of port information here. Plug and play information, tell it to do it or not do it or only support this bus. And then you had some power saving settings that you could apply here. So this is what the AMI BIOS splash screen looks like. You hit delete when the computer's booting. Delete, 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 delete as it's coming up, and then it'll catch that delete and then load the BIOS for you. Some of them are F12. Just look on the screen, it'll show you. So determining the BIOS manufacturer. Watch the monitor when the computer boots and it'll tell you who produced the BIOS for this computer. Check the computer or motherboard manual. That will also tell you. They'll have the splash screen there and the manufacturer's name is always on it. It'll likely be AMI or Amiga. So remove the computer cover and look at the chip. And use a third-party utility program. So you can use a third-party program that'll go and tell you what the BIOS is on the computer if you need that. And then cause an error that will launch the setup program. So that's one way to get it to identify itself. So we have the AMI and Amiga, as we talked about before. The most common ways to access the BIOS setup programs are press delete when the machine begins to boot. It'll actually tell you on the screen, so it's one of these Control-Alt-Escape-Delete or F2 when requested, and also F12 now on the more modern ones. You can press F12 to get in there. All you have to do is read the screen. It'll tell you what you need to do to get in it. It's AMI and Award, I'm sorry, AMI and Award BIOS. Follow the procedure for AMI or Phoenix. There's also Phoenix is a popular one too. So here's the Phoenix BIOS splash screen. So there's AMI, Award. Follow the procedure for AMI or Phoenix. AMI, Phoenix, and Award are the three popular ones we're going to talk about for the test. Okay, so just remember those. They're still pretty much the same, as well as the Open BIOS. You have the Open BIOS project now. And here's some more information. So we see the tabs across the top: main, advanced, security, power, exit. We're looking at the hard drives that were detected here. So you can use this for troubleshooting a drive if it won't come up. You can kind of say if it doesn't show up and it's plug and play is turned on in an older system, that the actual hard drive is bad. So this is a closer in screen with the little bit more information. And we have the advanced tab, so this is the next tab over. This is what it looks like. So setting items in this menu to incorrect values may cause your system to malfunction. All you have to do is get back in here and reset to factory defaults. Restore factory defaults and it should boot. You can see down there F10 previous values. Somewhere in here in the power, exit, or main, you'll have reset to default configuration. Plug and play OS, reset configuration data. That's where you do it right there. And then larger disk access mode. So for some of the older hard drives, this was critical, but for the newer ones, it is not. Everything today is just plug and play. Then we have a security tab where we have a supervisor password, a user password. Set supervisor password, and then you can set the user password, and then you can enable or disable them respectively. So you can get a password on boot. You can have a custom sign-on banner. If you're going to sell this, you can put your little company logo on there or your little logo, whatever you want to put, and stuff like that. Again, we don't really have to touch these today. There's very little you have to do on these. We have a power tab for the power management. Maybe you want to fiddle with this if it's not right. So maintaining the CMOS data can be lost for several reasons. There is a battery on the motherboard, so if the battery dies, you can lose it. It's just a watch battery, like a CR2012, something like that. They use different ones. They're all pretty much the same battery nowadays. Also, if you set the motherboard, if you pull it out of the box and you set it on a metal table, it will blow a hole the size of a quarter in the motherboard if you short out those battery pins. So do not ever set it on flat metal. So you can get away with it on the case a lot of times because the paint does not conduct electricity as a safety feature, but you never know. If you get one from China, it might be contaminated with something and it could conduct. If you set it in water, it'll conduct. And if you set it on a metal table, it will conduct and it'll blow that battery. It'll blow a hole the size of a quarter. I've seen it happen. So if the battery dies, you can lose your CMOS data, and you just go in and pick factory defaults, and then it'll boot right up. And you may be missing some stuff, then you can go in and start tinkering around with what you're missing to try to get it enabled. So you should write down your CMOS setup information or back it up. The ones today, you can kind of dump the configuration and back it up. And then plug and play devices include their own basic input output system information. So they provide their own information to the BIOS if it's plug and play. It'll tell it the number of sectors, the disk size, all of the information that it needs to know to be able to address it.